Hi Bobcats, this is Miss Lee, and today's video lesson is an introduction to ratios. Please make sure that you're taking good notes as you watch the video. Okay, so a ratio is a multiplicative comparison of two quantities. That means we're comparing the quantities with multiplication. Ratios can be part to whole, or whole to part comparisons. So let's take a look at the picture. We have a picture of some cats and dogs. Looks like they're scaredy cats in my opinion. And we can write a ratio of the number of cats to the number of dogs. So if we count them up, there are 3 cats and there are 6 dogs. So we can write this ratio of 3 cats to 6 dogs in 3 different ways. One of them, oh, I don't like that color. Let me change it, is to write it with the word to in between. We're not going to put cats, we're not going to put dogs, we're just writing the numbers. So it'd be 3, the word 2, 6. So a 3 to 6 comparison, a 3 to 6 ratio. That's one way. The other way is to replace the word to with a colon, but we still read it as 3 to 6. It's just instead of writing the word to, we replace it with a colon. And then the third way is to write it in fraction form, 3 to 6, where this fraction bar represents the word to. It replaces the word to. So these are the 3 ways that you can write ratios. You can write it using the word to, using the colon, or putting it in fraction form. And just like with fractions, we can also express ratios in simplest form. So looking here, I can see that my 3 to 6 ratio can be simplified. I divide both by 3 and I get a 1 to 2 ratio, which can be written using the word colon and then 1 with the number or with the word 2. Okay, so ratios are a comparison of 2 things, okay, of 2 quantities. It's a comparison. It's not the same as a fraction because a fraction is part of a whole. This is a comparison of 2 different quantities, 2 different things. So even though some characteristics might be the same, like just with a fraction, ratios need to be simplified, we're not going to call the ratios 1/2. Because 1/2 is a fraction, it's one value, and a ratio is a comparison of 2. So you have to say it as 1 to 2. And what this means is that for every 1 cat, because our first number represents the number of cats, there are 2 dogs, because the second number represents the dogs. So for every 1 cat, there are 2 dogs. So you can make a group. Here's 1 cat. I'm going to make a group of 1 cat and 2 dogs. I'm going to make a group of 1 cat and 2 dogs. I'm going to make a group of 1 cat and 2 dogs. So you can easily see that for every 1 cat, there are 2 dogs. Each group has the same amount, 1 cat, 2 dogs. So how do you think our ratio would change if we compared dogs to cats? So I always like, when I'm doing comparison, I always like to circle that word to, because it tells me what my first number in the comparison should be, which is about the dogs, and then the second should be about the cats. So I'll write it. This time it's dogs to cats. How many dogs are there? Well, there were 6 dogs. How many cats are there? 3. So our ratio would be 6 to 3. Or you could write it with a colon, or you could write it in fraction form. You don't say 6/3, it's still 6 to 3. Then you have to make sure you simplify. And I know I could divide both by 3, and that's going to give me a 2 to 1 ratio. A 2:1, 2 to 1, 2 to 1. So what would the ratio be if we compared dogs to total animals? So again, we're comparing dogs to, let's circle the word to, total animals. Okay, what comes first? The dogs comes first. How many dogs are there? 6. And I'm going to write mine in fraction form just because I know I might need to simplify, and it's easier to see that you can simplify by putting it in fraction form. So the fraction bar represents the word 2. Now total animals. Total animals doesn't mean just the cats. It means all of the animals, the cats and the dogs. So if you add them up, you get 9. So it's a 6 to 9 ratio. Simplify, we can divide both by 3, and it's going to give us a 2 to 3 ratio. That's how it is written in fraction form. You can write it with a colon, 2 to 3, or you could write it with the word 2, 2 to 3. All right, it is so important to pay attention to the order of the words. You have to pay attention to the order that you're given. The ratio of cats to dogs. What comes first? Cats. There were 3 cats. How many dogs were there? 6. Simplify, and we get a 1 to 2 ratio. This is what we call a part-to-part comparison. We have a group of animals. We're comparing the cat parts to the dog parts. It's a part to part. If we want to write the ratio of dogs to cats, well, the dogs would be 6, the cats would be 3. Simplify, you get a 2 to 1 ratio. Again, this is a part to part comparison. We're comparing the the dog parts to the cat parts. Then we have the ratio of cats to total animals. Well, there's a total of 3 cats. How many total animals are there in this group? There are 9. Simplify, divide by 3. It's going to give me a 1 to 3 ratio. This is what we call a part to whole, because we want to know the cat part, the ratio of the cat part to all of the animals, to the whole group of animals. So it's a part to whole comparison. And then the last one is the ratio of total animals to dogs. So again, there are 9 total animals. There are 6 dogs. Simplify, divide by 3, and we get a 3 to 2 ratio. This is a whole to part comparison, because the first part is the total animals, all of the animals, the whole group of animals. And then the second is the number of dogs. That is the part, just the dog part. Okay, so now we're just going to practice using these situations and writing the ratios that they're asking. So the first one says a mixture of paint requires 3 gallons of red paint for every gallon of yellow paint. What is the ratio of red to yellow paint? I'm going to circle the word to. What comes first in front of the word to is the red, and the comparison behind it is the yellow. So how many red paints do we have? 3. Again, I'm going to write it in fraction form just in case I need to simplify it. And then the yellow. Well, it says 3 red for every gallon of yellow. Every gallon means for 1. It doesn't say for every 2 gallons of yellow or for every 5 gallons of yellow. It says for every gallon, so that means for 1 gallon of yellow. So this is our ratio. It does not need to be simplified, 3 to 1. You can write it using the word to. You can write it using the colon. In Lauren's pencil case, she has 10 yellow highlighters for every 35 mechanical pencils. What is the ratio of pencils to highlighters? There's that word to. Pencils to highlighters. How many pencils? Well, it says 35 mechanical pencils. How many highlighters? It says 10 yellow highlighters. Can we simplify? Sure, we can divide by 5, and that gives us a 7 to 2 ratio. You can write it with the word to, 7 to 2, or you could write it with the colon, 7 to 2. So I want you to go ahead and pause the video and write the ratios for the last 2 examples, then come back and check to see how you did. Okay, so in the one with the marbles, they're asking for the ratio of purple marbles to total marbles. So they tell us that there are 19 marbles, so that goes first. 19 purple marbles. That's what goes first. And then it tells us that there's 11 blue marbles. But we want the total number of marbles. That means we need to add the purple and the blue together, because it tells us there's only the purple and the blue marbles. So 19 plus 11 is 30. Does not simplify, so our ratio would be 19 to 30. This is what we call a part to whole. A part to whole comparison. Part of the marbles compared to all of the marbles. Part to whole. And I should have gone through that for the first two examples. On the first one, it was asking for the ratio of red to yellow. That's going to be a part to part, because it doesn't say anything in there about the total gallons of paint. It just says the red paint and the yellow paint. So it's a part to part. And the second one, it's talking about highlighters and pencils. So it's another part to part relationship. Okay, and then the last one is asking for the ratio of woodwinds to brass players. So there are 33 woodwinds, there are 12 brass players. It doesn't ask for the total number or a comparison to the total number of band members, right? It's just comparing the woodwinds to the brass. So it is also a part-to-part relationship, 33 to 12. It does not simplify. Those are the three ways that you could write it. Fraction form, using the word to, and using the colon. Okay, great job, Bobcats.